Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Amanda Shee. I'm an anesthesiologist and intensivist. And today I want to talk about 5 reasons why I hate being an anesthesiologist. I just want to start off by saying that I absolutely love what I do. I get to do the best job, I think, in the world, and I get to have the best of both worlds. But with every single job and every profession and specialty in medicine, there are always going to be downsides. And that's really what I wanted to go over today, are those 5 things that do bother me about my specialty and my practice that don't bother me enough to make me want to change what I do, but are things that do matter. In the field of anesthesiology, there's frequently not a lot of continuity in patient care. And I went into medicine because I wanted to care for people. I want to learn about people. I want to understand where they came from, how their health is impacting them, and how we can get them to the next stage or step or a path forward for that individual. And so one of the issues that came up for me about anesthesia that I recognized during residency was the fact that what we do in anesthesiology is just a small part of someone's medical journey and what they are going to go through with either their health issues or other things. Although we come in for such a small part, we play an incredibly important role in a patient's surgical journey and their operating room experience. So we play a very important role, but we don't do it over a very, very long period of time. Many physicians have long-term relationships with their patients, like PCPs, internists, pediatricians, family medicine docs, OB-GYNs, and psychiatrists. A lot of different physicians actually see patients over the course of months to years to even decades. In anesthesiology, we talk in terms of minutes to hours. Every once in a while, we will have patients that will come back from multiple surgeries, and we will care for them over that course of their surgical care. However, even that, frequently, we don't end up taking care of the same patient, even though that patient comes back frequently. So that was my number one thing that actually led me to do a critical care fellowship, was that I wanted to see what happened after I cared for the patient in the operating room, or even what brought that patient to the hospital in the first place. And so that's one of the things it's one of the things I don't love about the practice of anesthesiology. A second thing that I discovered also during residency is that the practice of anesthesiology can be pretty isolating. When I was a resident, I realized when I was assigned to a room that I would be in that room without my colleagues that I was training with. For example, early on when you're learning to listen for the blood pressure cuff or be really aware of what's going on the other side of the drape with the surgery, what component are they at, kind of being aware of our surroundings, or learning to drop the right kind of medications. As a learner, we are discovering new things and tricks and ideas, and we're discovering things that we shouldn't be doing, like we shouldn't run an infusion in a bolus line, because then you can get a small bolus of a pressor or infusion by accident. These are things that we as learners are picking up, but we're all doing it in parallel. We're not able to do it together. And as an intern, as a medicine intern, I worked in a team with people. I worked with my team. I had a senior, I had another colleague who was also an intern, and we were able to together say, oh my God, I can't believe I did this, and talk about it and bounce ideas off of each other. But when you're in the operating room, you are the solo anesthesiologist there. The person who's supervising you as a trainee goes in and out and they're around, but for the most part, the things that you are doing independently. There is obviously a surgical team there, there's nursing staff there, but it's very different to be in an operating room away from other colleagues that are doing the same thing as you. So I found that sometimes I I felt very alone in the operating room. That, earlier on, I didn't have a great relationship with all of the circulating nurses, with the scrub techs, with the surgeons, the other surgical residents. And as a result, I got kind of lonely. So that isolation component is one area that right now in the current practice I'm in a supervisory model. So I work with residents and CRNAs and SRNAs, and I work with all of these different people, and I'm able to then go around and kind of get to know people and be able to kind of build that community in my mind. Then that's what I really love. But when I'm in a room on my own, which I still do, I'll do my own cases, those are times when I find that it can be really challenging to be away from my colleagues and not be able to kind of hear about what's going on in someone's life and be able to bounce new ideas off of other people. So that's a second thing that I really hate about the practice of anesthesiology. The third thing I wanted to bring up is that no one really knows what we do in anesthesiology, except maybe sort of the surgeons, but not really at the end of the day. It's really interesting. Anytime I have a conversation with my parents, they get the idea that, yes, I am an anesthesiologist. That means that I help people go to sleep and wake up for their surgeries. But the process of going to sleep and waking up is a total black box to the majority of the world outside of the operating room. Even our colleagues in other specialties who have never done a rotation in anesthesiology can't appreciate some of the nuances and some of the things that we do. Like, for example, we're the jack of all trades in the OR, right? So I, as an anesthesiologist, I can place an intravenous line, I can prime a bag, I can draw out medications, I can be my own pharmacist, I can deliver the medications, I can come up with a differential diagnosis, I can intubate, I can put in central lines, I can put in arterial lines. There's a lot of things that I can do, but the majority of the world doesn't know that. So now in the midst of COVID, when I, tell my family members or tell my friends that I'm actually doing intubations, this is a new thing for people, that they're starting to understand that anesthesiologists actually we're airway specialists as well. But that's not something that most people know. And so that can be a little frustrating sometimes when I'm like, oh, I'm an anesthesiologist, and immediately someone can recognize big picture, what is my role, but not really understand on a granular level what I do. That's different from other kinds of physicians. Most people interact with their PCP or their internal medicine docs. They interact with their OB-GYN, they interact with the emergency room, and they can see for themselves what they're doing. But in our practice, our patients are happiest oftentimes when they don't remember us and don't know what we're doing. So that can be a little tough when I try to explain, how or why the job that we do is actually pretty challenging at times. But that's that. Now, the fourth thing I wanted to talk about that I hate about this job is the component of unpredictability. I mean, there's a lot of that in medicine in general, so it's not going to go away regardless of the specialty, but there's something about going into a room with scheduled cases and then finding out that they're moving cases around or that an emergency comes crashing in the door. I know some people really love the adrenaline rush of, who knows what's coming, I could take on whatever. And while I feel prepared to take on whatever comes into my room, sometimes it's nice to just be able to anticipate having a nice day or be able to look forward to getting X, Y, or Z done and being done with that. Now, this is just a part of the job. It comes with the job that there's going to be unpredictability. One of the benefits of anesthesia is the fact that we have the ability to do more of a shift work type of model because we can pass off and hand off patients safely. But that being said, there are times when there's a difficult case or there is a adverse outcome that is unexpected or unanticipated, and the team that was in the room is the team that knew what was going on. that's a situation where I personally feel I made a commitment to the patient to care for them, and that I will not in that instance hand them off, especially if it's complex. So I would stay in that room and I would make sure to see a case all the way through. And that type of thing is unpredictable. Surgery is an unpredictable thing. When people ask, how long is this going to be? All I can say is generally it's around this amount of time, but you never know. So there's definitely an unpredictability related or surrounding our schedules and how the day is going to go. Now, the fifth thing I really hate about anesthesiology are the occupational hazards. I think a lot of people don't realize that we actually do quite a bit of heavy lifting. We will go ahead and reach under really, really awkward, weird places in order to get to our monitors or change something. Or every once in a while when we're in the middle of a case, we realize that we need a better IV or we need to adjust something. So we crawl under these blue drapes and we get into weird positions in order to be able to do the things to care for the patient safely. Additionally, there are more and more now cases or surgeries or procedures that are done under like X-ray or radiation guidance we call fluoroscopy. And in those situations, we all are prepared with lead and we get leaded and do everything we can, but that is an occupational hazard in itself as well. And so there's a lot of things, for example, in my institution at least, we as anesthesiologists are ones that are pushing the bed. And I can tell you that our beds are quite unwieldy. There are no motors on them and they are really hard to push around. So at this stage in my career, I'm happy to do it because honestly, it's a workout and I close my rings that way when I do some bed pushing and maneuvering. Our hospital is also really large and big and our PACUs can be far away from our operating rooms. So as a result, it can be quite a workout to get to the recovery room. And so those occupational hazards right now I feel okay about, but I have had instances where I'm helping to turn a patient or reposition a patient and I pull something in my back and I'm like, I am too young for this. Or there are times when I'm reaching under the drapes to go grab, to empty our Foley or to make sure that we have a good idea of what our estimated blood loss is, or to grab at something, and I'm on my hands and knees on a really, really tough floor, and I'm like, wow, this is not good for my knees right now. So those are definitely instances in which I'm like, man, why did I decide to go into this specialty? But even though there are those things that I don't enjoy about this specialty, there are definitely more things that I love about it. And that's why I'm still here. Even though, I don't have long-term patient continuity of care within the operating room, I elected to become an intensivist or a critical care anesthesiologist so that I can get that longer-term care. So there is that pathway within my specialty that allows me to still get that. Even though there is some isolation, as an attending, things have changed. There's different practice models. There's different ways that I can get out of that isolated feeling. Even though people don't understand what I'm doing, I find it really fascinating to be able to explain these things to my patients, to be able to explain these things to you over YouTube and use all of these great channels and ways to share the great things that anesthesiologists do and that our practice, that our specialty has added to medicine, and the ability to help patients through a really anxiety-provoking and stressful time in their lives. Even though things can be unpredictable, most of the time my schedule is predictable. Most of the time I get out when I need to get out, and I can anticipate when I'm gonna have a challenging case that I will plan to stay late for. And so there is a component of an unpredictability, but most of the time it's not that bad. And finally, the occupational hazard part, I think that's just a negative. I can't really spin that one into a way that's super positive other than I get my steps in for sure. And I definitely get to work out when I'm doing my job. I'm constantly moving when I'm in the operating room. However, it would be great not to have a ton of X-ray exposure, or the other component is wearing lead is very heavy and challenging and hard on the joints at times. But, you know, to only have a couple of things that are negatives in what I do every day, wow, I am so lucky. That's how I feel most of the time. So I hope this video was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments if there's certain things you had questions about in terms of my job as an anesthesiologist or my practice. Let me know if this was a video that you enjoyed, if you want to hear more of these types of videos, and take a moment and subscribe if you like my videos, and hit like if this one was a good one. I'll see you next time.